Okay, picture this. You land in a new country, bursting with ideas, this huge vision, but you can't even ask for a glass of water.
Right.
That was basically Reza's reality, moving from Iran to the U.S.
Yeah.
The language barrier wasn't just, an inconvenience. It felt like this massive, impossible wall.
It really hits home how fundamental communication is, doesn't it? Especially when you're trying to navigate something totally new, chase these big goals. That feeling of being locked out must have been incredibly intense.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring Reza's journey, and it's pretty remarkable, not just getting fluent in English, but actually building a successful business over there.
Okay.
Our source for this deep dive is this really interesting article, written like a podcast script, actually, aimed at English learners. And it focuses heavily on the advice Reza got from his teacher back in Iran.
So the mission here is really to pull apart the key ideas, the practical strategies that, made Reza's learning work. What did he do? What did his teacher tell him that maybe listeners could apply to their own big learning challenges? Language, skills, whatever.
Exactly that. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's just set the scene a bit. Reza knew, absolutely knew, his American dream depended entirely on learning English. It wasn't like a hobby.
No, it was essential.
It was survival, basically. Can you just imagine the anxiety? Deciding to move somewhere you literally can't understand anything. It must have felt just completely overwhelming.
Oh, for sure. That feeling of not being able to express yourself or get simple instructions or just connect, it makes you feel really vulnerable. But the fact that he recognized how absolutely necessary English was, that itself was a huge first step, right? A powerful motivator.
So the article picks up with him enrolling in an English class back in Tehran. And walking in that first day, he apparently felt super intimidated. Surrounded by other beginners, all struggling with these weird new sounds. He said he felt totally lost during explanations, just terrified of having to speak. Even saying hello felt like climbing a mountain.
Yeah, that feeling of being completely out of your depth. It's so common when you start something big and new. And language learning feels really personal. It puts your vulnerabilities right out there.
Definitely. But then Ms. Thompson comes into the picture, his English teacher. And from the sounds of it, she was a really special kind of mentor.
Okay.
She got that her students weren't just there for grammar drills. A lot of them had these huge dreams tied to learning English. So she focused not just on the what of the language, but the how of learning it. And crucially, building their confidence.
It sounds like she really understood that learning a language is like half mindset and strategy and half vocab and grammar. A good teacher helps you get over those mental blocks first.
Right. And the article lays out her core advice beautifully, and it's fascinating seeing how Reza actually used it. The first big one she gave him was consistency trumps intensity.
Ah, yes. Such a fundamental truth, really, for almost anything. Short, regular practice helps our brains actually absorb and keep stuff way better than, these intense cram sessions now and then.
Totally. It's like watering a plant, right?
Yeah.
Little and often works better than a massive flood once a month.
Exactly.
Ms. Thompson told him, look, 30 minutes every single day is going to get you much further than trying to do 3 hours once a week.
Right.
And Reza really ran with this. He started finding these little bits of time. 15 minutes on the bus, 10 minutes at lunch, maybe 20 minutes before bed. He had flashcards, listened to recordings, reviewed notes, whenever he had a spare moment.
What's great there is how proactive he was. He didn't just wait for free time. He actively made those little windows, that kind of deliberate effort, slotting it into the routine. That says a lot about his commitment. You can see how those little bits would just add up over time.
Absolutely. Okay, next key bit of advice. Embrace mistakes as your best teachers. This is such a big one for learners, isn't it? That fear of messing up.
Oh, it's huge. That fear can totally paralyze you. It stops people from actually trying things out, practicing, which is ironically the only way you learn a language. It's like being scared to fall off a bike. You'll just never learn to ride.
Ms. Thompson's angle was that mistakes aren't failures. They're just feedback, really valuable feedback. Every slip-up, she said, is a chance to learn. She pushed Reza to really look at his mistakes, figure out why he made them, and not let that fear stop him from trying to speak or write.
It's interesting. Our brains are kind of wired to learn from errors, right? A mistake triggers this little correction mechanism.
Exactly. So avoiding mistakes is actually avoiding learning.
So how did Reza actually use this? The article says he was, understandably, pretty worried about sounding silly at first.
Sure. Who isn't?
But Ms. Thompson created this supportive space, and slowly Reza started just trying out new words, new phrases, knowing he'd probably stumble. He paid attention when he got corrected, and apparently even started to laugh about his own errors sometimes, which must have taken the pressure off. That's such a key shift. Going from, oh no, I messed up, to, okay, what can I learn from that? That changes everything.
It really seems like a fundamental turning point.
Oh.
Okay, third piece of advice was all about motivation. Find your why and remind yourself constantly.
Yes, tapping into that internal drive. Because learning anything hard takes sustained effort, right? And your motivation will dip. Having that strong reason behind it all keeps you anchored when things get tough.
Ms. Thompson told him, on those days you feel like giving up, you have to reconnect with why you started. Your big dream, the things English would let you do.
Makes sense.
And Reza's why was powerful, this vision of a new life in the U.S. He actually wrote down his reasons, kept a picture of California where he could see it,
Yeah.
and would actively visualize himself living and working there when he felt discouraged.
That's smart, making it tangible.
Yeah, the list, the photo, the mental movies.
Yeah.
It made the goal feel real, not just this abstract idea. It turned learning English into a concrete step towards something he really, really wanted.
It provides that constant internal fuel. Great strategy.
Number 4 was, immerse yourself beyond the classroom. She stressed that lessons were just the start. English was all around him, even in Tehran.
Right, immersion. It's such a powerful accelerator. You surround yourself with the language, create constant little exposures, and it reinforces everything in a much more natural way.
And Reza took this seriously, even before leaving Iran. He started listening to American music, but like really listening, looking up lyrics,
Ah, okay.
watching kids' cartoons in English. He changed his phone language setting to English. Started trying to read simple news articles online, dictionary in hand at first.
Wow, he was really creating his own little English bubble. That phone language thing is clever, forces you to interact with it daily in a practical way.
Even if he only understood the gist of the cartoons or news at first, it was that constant exposure.
That comprehensible input, yeah. Your brain starts picking up patterns even if you don't realize it.
Okay, next piece of advice tackled perfectionism. Ms. Thompson said, focus on communication, not just perfection.
Oh, vital. So vital for language learners. The main goal is just getting your meaning across, being understood. If you aim for perfect grammar right away, you'll probably just clam up and lose confidence.
Right. It's about being understood, not being flawless, especially early on.
Intelligibility over accuracy, at least to start.
She told him it's way better to say something imperfectly but get your point across than to stay silent trying to craft the perfect sentence in your head.
Totally.
So Reza had to consciously fight that urge. He started using simpler sentences, focused on just the main message, used gestures, and wasn't afraid to ask people to repeat or clarify. That willingness to just communicate, warts and all, is key.
It's about approximation, isn't it? You get closer to accuracy by communicating, not by waiting for perfection before you even open your mouth.
Exactly. Number 6 was pretty direct. Speak from day one, even if just a little.
Huh. Often the scariest one. But yeah, incredibly important. Speaking makes you actively use the language, shows you where the gaps are, and builds that all-important confidence.
Mrs. Thompson was firm. Don't wait until you feel ready. So Reza started small, practicing words and phrases out loud, just to himself.
Mm-hmm.
In class, he pushed himself to answer questions, even if it was just a word or two. And he found a classmate to practice simple conversations with after class.
Those little steps are foundational.
Yeah. Even if they felt awkward, they got him used to the physical act of speaking English, bridging that gap between understanding and actually producing it.
Right, getting the mouth and brain working together on the new sounds, the new structures.
Number 7 was about keeping it interesting. Find ways to make it enjoyable and relevant.
Smart. If you connect learning to your actual interests, it stops feeling like a chore. It gives you a natural reason to learn vocabulary related to things you actually care about.
Reza was into tech and business, so he started following simple English tech news sites and eventually business podcasts, even if he only caught keywords at first.
That's brilliant.
It made learning feel less like schoolwork and more like getting useful info about his passions.
Yeah, it reframes language learning as a tool to get something you want, not just an exercise in itself. Huge motivational boost.
Okay, next one tackled the long haul. Be patient and persistent. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
So important to manage expectations. Progress isn't always steady, is it? With language or any big skill. You hit plateaus, sometimes you even feel like you're going backwards for a bit.
Ms. Thompson warned him there'd be days he felt stuck, like he wasn't improving, and that's normal. The key, she said, was just keep showing up. Be patient with yourself on the slow days, but stick with the consistent effort.
That advice must have been gold during the tough patches.
He said it was. Just remembering that kept him going.
Recognizing it's a gradual thing, building that resilience to push through even when it feels slow, that's absolutely vital for sticking with it long enough to succeed. It's about the journey, not just the destination.
And the last core piece of advice was, visualize your future self using English.
Using mental imagery. Powerful stuff. It makes the goal feel more real, more achievable, strengthens your commitment. You vividly imagine yourself doing the thing you're working towards.
Ms. Thompson encouraged them to picture themselves having conversations, giving presentations, just navigating life confidently in English. Reza specifically imagined himself talking to colleagues in the U.S., understanding the culture, building his business.
That mental rehearsal.
Yeah. It made the hard work feel more meaningful, like it was directly leading to that visualized future, made the goal feel closer.
Creates a compelling picture of what you're aiming for. Great motivator when things get tough in the present.
So armed with all this wisdom, Reza really threw himself into it there in Tehran. And it wasn't easy, the article makes that clear. He got frustrated, grammar was hard, vocabulary felt endless.
Standard language learning experience.
Pretty much. But he stuck to it, the daily practice, learning from mistakes, finding English stuff everywhere. And over time, it worked. He went from zero to basic survival English, then to being conversational, understanding what he read.
That slow, steady build.
Yeah, it wasn't overnight, but month by month, the progress was real.
Yeah.
It really shows how consistently applying those principles builds a solid foundation.
Then, the payoff, he got his U.S. visa. Years of work leading to that moment, but arriving in the States, whole new ball game, linguistically speaking.
Oh yeah, suddenly it's native speakers talking fast, different accents everywhere, slang, totally different from the classroom.
That leap from structured learning to real-world chaos can be jarring. Suddenly, English isn't a subject. It's how you buy groceries, understand your boss, everything.
Exactly. He had to basically adapt all of Ms. Thompson's advice to this new reality. Consistency wasn't just 30 minutes a day. It was being on linguistically, like all day long.
Right.
Embracing mistakes. Way more critical and probably more stressful when real stuff is on the line.
Higher stakes.
Immersion wasn't optional anymore. It was total. Constant active listening, trying to catch patterns. And speaking wasn't practice. It was just necessary for everything.
But in that pressure cooker, the learning curve probably steepened dramatically too, right? Because you have to communicate.
Absolutely. He got a job at an Amazon warehouse, and that turned out to be this unexpected, super intensive English boot camp.
I can imagine.
He had to quickly learn all this practical vocab logistics, teamwork, safety stuff. Plus, he was hearing tons of different accents, different ways of talking, and constantly having to ask questions, explain himself clearly.
That kind of environment where communication is directly tied to just doing your job properly forces you to improve fast. You can't hide.
And even after long, tiring shifts, he kept up the discipline, reviewing words he heard, consciously listening for how people phrased things. Mrs. Thompson wasn't there, but her principles were clearly baked into how he operated.
That's impressive dedication.
His fluency shot up, just out of necessity, really, driven by the demands of the job and daily life.
Necessity is a powerful teacher, and it sounds like the mix of her structured advice and that intense real-world immersion was the perfect storm for rapid progress.
Yeah. And while he's working at Amazon, he starts noticing things, like inefficiencies in how stuff gets delivered. And this sparks an idea for his own business. Something about supply chains, last mile delivery.
The entrepreneurial seed.
But launching a business, that required a whole other level of English. Suddenly, he needed to network, write a proper business plan, pitch to investors.
Oh yeah, much higher level skills. Confidence, clear articulation, handling tough questions.
Exactly. Negotiating contracts, writing marketing stuff, hiring people, managing a team. It's a huge leap.
But the article suggests that the discipline and the personal growth from learning the language actually equipped him for these new business challenges.
It seems so. That ability to buckle down and research, navigate complicated documents, find mentors, overcome the fear of putting himself out there. He'd already built those muscles learning English.
Right, those transferable skills. Resilience, problem solving.
English became his main tool for building relationships, explaining his vision, solving problems, convincing people. It wasn't just about knowing words anymore. It was about using them effectively, persuasively, in all these complex situations.
It really shows how language proficiency isn't just a skill in isolation. It unlocks these broader professional opportunities.
So he launches the business, And of course, it's tough. Startups always are. But he keeps applying those core ideas from Miss Thompson. Consistency, learn from screw-ups, be patient, keep pushing.
The marathon, not the sprint, applied to business now.
Exactly. And slowly, steadily it works. The hard work, the smart moves, and crucially, his ability to communicate clearly in English. It all starts paying off. The business grows.
Nice.
Eventually, he's heading up this thriving company, talking to top execs, negotiating big deals, leading a diverse team. His English is now described as articulate, nuanced, powerful.
Wow. What a journey from that first intimidated class. It really demonstrates the long-term impact of those early language efforts, doesn't it? The resilience and discipline he learned then became assets for building the whole business.
And the end result. His company becomes this really significant enterprise. But when Reza looks back, the article says he talks less about the money and more about the transformation, overcoming the barriers, finding his voice, unlocking his potential. He genuinely believes learning English was the hardest, but also the most important thing he did to achieve his dreams, because of the discipline, the resilience, the self-belief it forced him to develop.
It's such a powerful reminder that learning a language is way more than just learning words. It really can be a catalyst for huge personal growth, building qualities that help you succeed in anything.
So thinking about Reza's story, what are the big takeaways for listeners maybe facing their own challenges?
Well, first, that initial barrier language or whatever hurdle you're facing it feels huge, but it is conquerable. With consistent effort, the right approach, it really drives home just taking that first small step.
Yeah, don't get paralyzed by the size of it. And second, Ms. Thompson's advice, it's kind of timeless, isn't it? Yeah. These aren't just language tips. They're fundamental principles for mastering anything complex.
Absolutely. Consistency over intensity, embracing mistakes, knowing your why, immersion, focusing on communication, speaking early, making it relevant, patience, visualization. These apply everywhere.
And Reza's journey just screams. Fluency or mastery of a skill opens real doors. Career, business, travel, understanding cultures, building relationships, just sheer confidence.
It definitely unlocks tangible opportunities, but also maybe just as importantly is that personal growth piece we talked about. Yeah. The self-discipline, the resilience, the problem-solving, the belief in yourself that comes from tackling something hard and succeeding. That's invaluable long after you've learned the skill itself.
So for you listening, as you think about your own goals, whatever they might be, maybe take a page from Reza's book and Ms. Thompson's. What's your deep down why? What's going to keep you going when it gets tough?
Yeah, connecting with that core motivation.
And then, inspired by Reza, what's one small, consistent action you can commit to? Like today, right now. Something that moves you just one tiny step closer. Because that's where it starts, right? That small action fueled by your why.
Exactly. That initial step, powered by purpose, kept up consistently. That's what starts the whole cycle of learning and growth. Reza's story is amazing proof of that.